Imagine if life led you to reunite with the great love of your past, the one destiny cruelly took away from you. Along with this reunion comes the discovery of a truth that changes everything. This is how the story of Leonard Blanc begins, a powerful man used to controlling everything except his own emotions. It was a cold, elegant night in the city. Leonard had just returned to Paris, his hometown, after many years living in New York, where he managed the family business branch. Under his leadership, the business in the United States flourished, but recently, he decided to return to France to be closer to his father and to assist directly at the company's headquarters. This change stirred memories he preferred to leave buried. Now he found himself in one of Paris's most luxurious restaurants, illuminated by golden lights that reflected off marble walls. He was there for business, as always, keeping his emotions locked tightly away. But something unexpected caught his attention, a humble little girl outside, visible through the glass window, holding a basket of chocolates. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her hair tied up messily. But it wasn't her appearance that intrigued him, it was her gaze. There was a firmness, a determination that seemed to bear the weight of the world without bending. Something about her eyes reminded him of someone from his past, though he couldn't place who. She offered chocolates to passing drivers, repeatedly rejected yet never losing her smile, a little warrior. Leonard tried to ignore the curiosity bubbling inside him, but he couldn't. He found himself standing up, an impulsive act for a man so disciplined. Leaving the table, he stepped outside and approached her. He asked how many chocolates she had left. "About 10, sir," she replied, with a dignity he'd noticed even from afar. He bought them all. Her smile lit up the night. She gave a small jump of joy, realizing she'd sold all her chocolates at once. Her eyes sparkled as she explained, "I'm selling these to help my friend at school. She doesn't have all the supplies she needs, and my mom let me sell here near her workplace so I could earn some money to buy them for her." Leonard was taken aback by the girl's generosity. "That's very noble of you," he said with a smile. But before he could walk away, he noticed her looking at him differently, with a serious, curious gaze. Intrigued, he asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" She hesitated for a moment before answering firmly, "Your face looks familiar. I'm pretty sure I've seen you before. There's a photo of you at home with my mom." Leonard chuckled briefly, shaking his head. "A photo of me? You must be mistaken." The girl stared at him with conviction. "I'm not mistaken. I'm sure it's you." Suddenly, Leonard felt deeply intrigued. Who was her mother? And why would she have a photo of him? These questions swirled in his mind as he gazed at the girl, who, despite her youth, seemed full of determination. Following his instincts, Leonard thanked her and walked toward the cafe she'd mentioned. The world seemed to freeze for a moment. The aroma of fresh coffee and baked bread enveloped him, but his eyes were fixed on the woman behind the counter. Clarisse. She froze when she saw him, her eyes reflecting shock and pain. Leonard's heart raced. It was her, the great love of his life. When she saw him, it felt as though time had stopped. The past crashed into the present with an intensity Clarisse wasn't prepared for. Her eyes widened for a brief moment, reflecting a mix of surprise, hurt, and something deeper, something even she couldn't define. Quickly, she tried to mask her reaction, straightening her posture and adopting a cold, composed expression. Yet her eyes betrayed her, brimming with suppressed emotions. For Leonard, seeing her made his heart pound. It was as though a whirlwind of memories and feelings swallowed him whole. He tried to speak, but the words were caught in his throat. Their eyes met in a long-waited moment, as if silently conversing about everything left unsaid over the years. Clarisse was the first to look away, trying to focus on arranging cups on the counter, but her hands trembled slightly. Leonard couldn't take his eyes off her. He knew he needed answers, that he had to understand her, but something about the moment felt too sacred to break with rushed words. Finally, he stepped forward, but then hesitated. The history connecting them hung in the air, so heavy it was almost tangible. That night, in the silence of his apartment, Leonard was flooded with memories. Clarisse had been the sun in his life, the center of all his future plans. They had shared dreams of building a simple yet fulfilling life together. Leonard often spoke about leaving behind the pressures of family and the corporate world, living a more authentic life by her side. Clarisse inspired him to be a better man, adding lightness and meaning to every moment they shared. They envisioned a cozy house on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by a garden where they could raise their children and cultivate a love that seemed unshakable. But all of that fell apart suddenly. Clarisse disappeared without explanation, leaving Leonard completely adrift. He searched everywhere they had been together, asked friends, and tried to understand what could have happened, but silence was his only answer. Days turned into weeks, then months, until the pain of her absence was overshadowed by immense pressure from his family. They insisted he leave Paris and move to New York to finish his studies and take over the family business operations in the United States. Devastated and with no hope of finding her again, Leonard gave in to the pressure. He left for New York, throwing himself into work as a way to numb the pain. Over the years, he built an impeccable career and became a respected figure in the business world, but he could never fill the void Clarisse had left. Now seeing her again, so close yet still distant, all that suffering and unanswered questions came rushing back with full force. And that little girl, Sophia, might be the key to unlocking the mystery that had marked his life forever. The next day, Leonard woke up determined to find the answers he sought. He returned to the café, where Clarisse greeted him with the same coldness. At first, she avoided speaking with him, keeping her eyes averted and staying busy. But Leonard persisted, asking for just a few minutes of her time. Reluctantly, she finally agreed to sit down and talk. He chose his words carefully, trying not to seem invasive. He began by expressing how much he had missed her, but quickly addressed the question that had been haunting him: why she had disappeared so suddenly. Clarisse, initially hesitant, held his gaze for a few seconds before looking away again. The tension was palpable. Finally, with a heavy sigh, she could no longer hold back her emotions and told him everything. Clarisse explained that at the time, she had received seemingly irrefutable evidence that Leonard had betrayed her: photos, letters, even messages, all carefully orchestrated to appear convincing. She was devastated and, unable to confront him directly, decided to leave. But her departure wasn't solely out of heartbreak. She was also facing personal and family pressures that made it impossible to stay in Paris. Leonard listened to every word, stunned. He stammered, explaining immediately that none of it was true. Feeling the weight of the puzzle pieces falling into place, he realized it could all have been a setup, and not just by anyone, but possibly by his own family, specifically his father, Simon. As he tried to gather his thoughts, Leonard wanted to ask if the girl, Sophia, was their daughter, a result of the love they had shared in the past. However, seeing Clarisse's nervousness and the tension already present in the conversation, he held back, afraid of seeming intrusive. Clarisse, for her part, also chose not to reveal the whole truth at that moment. She knew there was too much at stake and decided not to overwhelm him all at once. Both, trapped by their own hesitations, left questions unanswered, but the weight of what had been said felt like only the beginning of a complex reconciliation. Leonard left the café furious, his heart pounding as his mind raced with anger and frustration. Wasting no time, he decided to confront his father directly. Arriving at the family mansion, he entered unannounced, ignoring the surprised looks of the staff. In the luxurious office, he found Simon calmly seated at his desk. Leonard, unable to hide his fury, erupted, "Why did you do it? You destroyed the best thing in my life." Simon, clearly caught off guard, tried to maintain his composure, but it didn't take long for him to admit the truth. He confessed to orchestrating the situation to protect Leonard's business reputation, claiming that Clarisse wasn't a suitable choice for the future he had envisioned for his son. Simon's words initially sounded like empty justifications. He confessed with a certain melancholic pride that he had orchestrated everything with Leonard's future in mind. "I did it to ensure your success, so you could focus on what truly matters. I thought I was helping you avoid distractions and become the man you are today," Simon said, his voice laced with unwavering confidence in what he considered his grandest decision as a father. Leonard remained silent for a moment, but his heavy breathing betrayed his restrained fury. Finally, he shot back, "You didn't just destroy my future with Clarisse. You may have taken away precious years I could have spent with my own daughter." His words echoed through the office like an unexpected blow. Simon blinked, confused, and asked hesitantly, "Daughter? What do you mean by that?" Leaning forward, Leonard's voice was filled with pain and frustration. "Sophia. The little girl I met today might be my daughter, the result of the love Clarisse and I shared. And because of you, I may have missed all those years with her." Simon seemed struck by the words. The pride that had defined his expression dissolved into deep regret. He averted his gaze, his hands trembling slightly. I didn't know," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "I thought I was doing what was best for you, Leonard. I thought I was protecting your future. I never imagined that." Leonard watched his father in silence, his expression a mix of disappointment and empathy. Finally, Simon raised his eyes, now brimming with sorrow. "I made a terrible mistake. I was so focused on shaping your success that I forgot what really matters. Forgive me, son. I can't change the past, but I want to help make things right, if you'll let me." Leonard stared at him for a long moment before shaking his head slowly. "It's not that simple, Dad. You've caused so much pain. But if you truly want to help, start by admitting your mistakes to Clarisse. That's the least you can do." Simon nodded, his hands still trembling but with a newfound determination. Leonard left the office without looking back, the anger still burning inside him but with a glimmer of hope that perhaps something good could emerge from this chaos. Determined to rebuild what he had lost, Leonard began approaching Clarisse and Sophia with care. He visited the cafe often, bringing small gestures of kindness and support. His interactions with Sophia revealed a tender paternal side of him he had never known. Slowly, Clarisse let her guard down. She saw a different Leonard in front of her, more human, more vulnerable. In a heartfelt moment, Leonard gave Clarisse a heart-shaped pendant with a photo of her and Sophia inside. It was a simple but powerful gesture, symbolizing his commitment to them. Clarisse couldn't hide her emotions. That small act made her realize Leonard's genuine interest in both her and Sophia. It was something deeper, a care that came straight from the heart. A few days later, as they sat together at a quiet table in the cafe, Clarisse felt it was finally time to reveal the truth. She took a deep breath, her gaze filled with a mix of nervousness and determination. "Leonard, there's something important I need to tell you," she began, holding the pendant in her hands. He leaned slightly forward, his eyes attentive. "Sophia. She's your daughter." For a moment, Leonard's world seemed to stop. From the first moment he'd seen Sophia, he had felt an inexplicable connection, an emotion that ran through him in ways he couldn't understand. Now, it all made sense. "I knew it," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "From the moment I saw her, I felt something. I didn't know what it was, but now everything fits." His eyes glistened with unshed tears, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "She's my daughter," he repeated, as if he needed to hear the words aloud to believe them. "Clarisse, thank you for telling me. This means more to me than you can imagine." Clarisse watched his reaction, feeling the weight of years of secrecy begin to lift. Leonard reached out, taking her hand firmly but gently. "I promise you and Sophia that I'll always be here. For both of you. For our family." As the days passed, the three of them began spending more time together. The relationship between Leonard and Clarisse grew from friendship to romance. He invited her for a walk in the park, and in a moment of courage, held her hand for the first time. She didn't pull away. It was then they realized that the love they once shared was still alive. Finally, Leonard proposed to Clarisse. He knelt before her, holding out a ring, and asked if they could become the family they were always meant to be. Overwhelmed with emotion, Clarisse said yes. In the end, Leonard, Clarisse, and Sophia became the family that destiny had tried to separate. Their story is proof that true love can overcome lies, mistakes, and even time. They didn't just recover what was lost, they built something even stronger, a love reborn and a united family. And you? Do you believe in second chances at love? If this story touched your heart and made you believe that true love can overcome any obstacle, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories that inspire you to believe in the power of love. Together, let's continue writing happy endings. See you in the next one.